On this episode, we are concluding our Snyder Cut discussion. We're going to be talking about Batman, Steppenwolf, what this Snyder Cut means for the future of the DCEU, or at least what we hope, and much more. I'm Captain Nostalgia, and this is the Victims and Villains podcast, a podcast extension of the nonprofit that educates and engages individuals on mental health awareness and suicide prevention through pop culture. Grab your pitchforks, the show starts right now, and yes, spoilers are ahead. We're back to talk about more Snyder Cuts. I think that when Celeste and I sometimes we get together and we talk about these big things, we never intend for them to be two-parters. I'm thinking back to when we did Watchmen last year. We never intended for that one to be a two-parter, and yet it was 2.5 beautiful hours of just diverging that. And so this is going to be the second part to episode 371 that we put out a couple days ago. If you guys haven't heard it, links are in the descriptions below. But let's jump in to talk about the remainder of Snyder Cut. And here is a fun favor for kind of jumping back in where we were on our last episode. Back in the turn of the century, the new millennium, DC was trying to figure out what to do with their movie slates. Batman and Robin had just failed, and one of the things that they were going to greenlight was a Jack Black-led Green Lantern movie that was going to be comedy.
Oh my God.
And basically his concept was... Just imagine a guy gets a hold of this ring. Just imagine what he could do, and that was the concept that they ran with, and that's very much how Barry Allen feels like in Justice League's 2017 version. It just kind of seems like they didn't really know what to do with that character.
But hey, we have that scene where towards the end he races Superman. Hey, I'll defend that scene, and I'll also defend him meeting Batman in the original version as well.
So apparently that scene actually was shot by Snyder, but it just totally doesn't fit with what the Snyder Cut was overall. So I thought that was a pretty interesting fact, but yeah, I do enjoy that scene.
Which scene? Are you saying Snyder wrote the race scene? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Because I thought Henry's face looked effed up in that scene, so I thought it was filmed with the miracle mustache remover that failed the work. So I thought that was a Josh cut, but maybe it wasn't.
Not from what I've read. I know that he shot it. Whedon could have cut it. I don't know. But let's
reshot
it. Let's jump into to kind of talk about the leaders of this crew, Batman and Wonder Woman. Josh, we talked about this during the BVS watch party, where you have that just instantaneous reaction to the Martha, how they're magically friends now. And but that's like mindset of like making things right with Superman is kind of like the motivation that brings him to form the Justice League. And I'm curious how you guys kind of felt about him and kind of how his arc was handled throughout the course of this.
You know what? I thought when Bruce comes back and he sees Alfred on that tarmac after being denied by Aquaman. He tells Alfred that Aquaman said no, and Alfred said, "Oh, so we're 0 for 2 now," which means that despite what was said at the end of Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman isn't necessarily on his team yet either. She's back over in Europe. She's doing her art gig. Batman's alone in this, so it really. I do agree that even in the Ultimate Edition, their whole "we're best buds" thing was really rushed. But I still liked Batman's conviction, and that he at least has that premonition to go off of that he feels is very real, and that's motivating him. And he's not going to give up on that, even though it may be hard to get these people. And to see him go from the down and out drunk, mess that he was in BVS to a man that's going on faith in this film, I thought that was great. And it really does make Man of Steel, BVS, and this film feel like a trilogy because, BVS starts at the end of Man of Steel. Justice League starts at the end of Batman v Superman. It just felt very cohesive. And even though Batman wasn't in the first one, you feel that there's an arc with him between BVS and this where he is coming back. And that's why I was fine with us not getting a Batman solo film because we've had all these versions of Batman and most of them were in Batman's prime. BVS, we see Batman in his later years and man, he is just he's in the dumps. He's let so much stuff affect him, so much negative stuff in his life and the loss of his adopted son. He's grown cold and he's grown cruel, and this whole thing, this gives him purpose and it later gives him faith that he has to cling on to, and it's bringing him back. And that's why I'm sad we might not get any more Batfleck because there's some redemption to his character and it brings new life into him. And I would like to see what a solo Batman film after this would be with that character development that he has throughout these films.
Yeah, it's there is a line, where Alfred is talking to him after he first tries to go after Aquaman is not successful. He's like, maybe this job of you being a recruiter is not ideal for you. But Batman sees it that, no, this is what I have to do. At first I was afraid of Superman. I was thinking that he was a threat. But until I got to know him and to see that we have something in common as far as our mothers and everything, then I see him as a guy we need. So Batman takes it on to himself to do a very, very hard job. I mean, getting together all of these mostly metahumans and aliens together to come and save the world. It's not as easy as you think. Of course, all of these heroes think that they're better off mostly on their own. I mean, we see Wonder Woman, she had her solo film. She did an amazing job. We see Cyborg, we see Flash, we see Aquaman. Like, all of these heroes, they're great on their own. They're powerful on their own, but getting them together to work together, to actually have a plan, to see that this is just bigger than all of us, is very admirable from Batman. And I can see that he has grown. His character has become a lot more of a leader, than what we saw at the beginning of Batman versus Superman. And it takes a lot, for a guy like this. He doesn't have to do this. Batman, he chose to do this. And I think mostly it has to do with knowing that, hey, I can't do all this by myself. But also, he has the foresight to see that, yes, we can all be together, but we need that one guy, Superman. And it causes them to go and bring out Superman from the casket and resurrect him, because he knows that the mother boxes were not waking up or awakened until Superman had passed away, and it started calling out to Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf knows in his heart of hearts that it's going to be easier to get the mother boxes if Superman is dead more than he's just alive. And seeing for Batman bringing all of these heroes together and understanding what his limitations are power-wise, that's remarkable, because sometimes it's not about knowing what you can do well, but also knowing what you can't do well. That's good awareness to have. And I think Batman, he has this awareness that he probably didn't have in his younger days, that he only got with becoming older and more mature and seeing things in a different light.
Yeah. And I think that whole scene of them standing around the table and coming to the realization that they need to use this mother box to bring back Superman, I think that was such a better scene in this extended, not just the stuff with Cyborg, but Cyborg walking you through, where that box has been and how it got here, and then how we understand what this box is, that it's a change machine. The Nazi stuff was cool. Him walking through as the Allies were taking up the relics that they found from a Nazi stronghold, that was really neat. And then just to see the progression of how that box came to be with Star Labs, and then how it came to be with his father, and then how it was used to bring him back. Then they come to that realization of, okay, this is a change machine. This could be very this could be very catastrophic, but it could do something great as well. And then for Flash to be like, I think we're all thinking it, but I'm not going to say it. And Cyborg just to put up that image of Superman, I thought that was it was a smoother scene, and it made more sense, and it was a group realization. And yeah, for you just saw it on Bruce's face that it was a change in him, and even Alfred trying to say, is this really something you should do? You've done so much already. You've put together that team that nobody thought you could put together. Is that not enough? Is this something that maybe you shouldn't be meddling with? And Bruce is just like, I'm acting on faith. For the first time, I'm acting on faith. And you're rooting for him. You're like, oh man, that's kind of like some positive that you haven't had in your life for a minute. Take that faith and run with it. So yeah, I like that progression a lot better in this film.
This movie did a good job of making me more of a fan of Ben Affleck's Batman and Bruce Wayne. And I do think say what you will about his Batman, I think he makes a great Bruce Wayne. Like his characterization, and you can see the loss and the trauma that he's been through with losing the people that have worked alongside him, that he was responsible for taking care of. And so we see that how he handles that. And Batman v Superman goes into that, obviously, with more of his like broken down, more angry type response to things. And I feel like this is now, after having gotten to know Superman, he just has more of a better educated view of the world and the people that he wants to work alongside. I also love that scene of them kind of putting together, we could use this to bring Superman back. And I especially appreciate that in the Snyder Cut, it's more of a unanimous decision. In Whedon's version, you had Wonder Woman kind of trying to say, well, maybe we shouldn't do this. Bringing things back from the dead isn't really a good thing to do, which I don't disagree with her on. But I think in this instance, it was nice to kind of see the teamwork in coming together and all agreeing, like, if we're going to win, we really need to bring this son of Krypton back to help alongside us.
Agreed. And for me personally, as a viewer, Bruce's arc throughout the course of this movie really resonated to me. And I don't know if anyone outside of this call will ever hear this, but a year ago, setting out to really form a solid team of writers and podcasters that were capable to align with the vision that I have for Victims was incredibly hard, and I'm still trying to refine a lot of that stuff. And I've gone on record saying this, like, Victims and Villains wouldn't be what it is without the three of you guys and the other writers, both Marks, Abigail, Cam, and just so many other people that I'm probably forgetting, Brandon, at the moment as well. So, like, I really understood, like, his journey of, like, trying to, like, find the right people that could do this. And then by the end of the film, we learned that there are others out there that are not just these three that Luthor had tabs on, but we also have Martian Manhunter and also the Atom as well, which I don't know. Celestan, do you guys know who the Atom is in this movie?
Wasn't it the scientists working along with Silas in the lab?
Yes. Yeah.
That makes so much sense. I was trying to figure out, like, this seems like a person I should know, and the way that whole character, like, introduction went down. I think my fiance literally turned to me and was like, I think we're supposed to know who that is. I was like, oh yeah, that slipped me. That's so cool though. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was like
the smallest of teases. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kept showing him, and I was like, he has to play a part in this story somehow.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that hope, one more thing was, once Bruce got a taste of that hope, he was not letting go of it. And I liked how right before they brought Superman back, Cyborg had that that vision of the future of everything going wrong, and then he's looking at that. Aquaman's over here like, we should abort. Wonder Woman's just kind of caught in the middle, like, I don't know. And, and Flash is just ready to go. And Bruce is just like, no, I've had a taste of that hope. We're doing this. We've already talked about the possible negatives. I don't care. Just do it. And Cyborg going, no, and Flash going, go, and that was just a really nice last minute, like, oh crap, maybe they shouldn't be doing this. Like, we all want Superman to come back, but what if it goes bad? I liked that last second tension that was thrown back into the Snyder Cut, because I didn't feel much. I mean, it was tense, but it wasn't that tense in the Joss version.
And with the nightmare sequence at the end too, that with that, right before the mother box hits the water, Cyborg is given the visions of Darkseid coming. We see him, the Omega beams hitting the Atlanteans, and really searching for the anti-life equation. And he's like, no, this can't happen. If we do this, the nightmare world is going to become a reality. And so you have the scout ship that's trying to discourage the marriage of the two. And even at the end, Bruce finds himself in he's I dug this grave and I'm gonna undo everything that I do. And the Joker even says, you need me to undo the mess that you've created. And that out of everything else that this film teases for future films, I want to know why the Joker is such a pivotal part in Batman's plan for the nightmare reality.
Yeah, I do too. That he seemed to be to be more vital than, hey, you just need another member on your team. He seemed to suggest that you need me, which is interesting. I mean, a lot of people are like, how would Joker even survive? How would he even be? He's not superhero powered or super powered or anything. And I was just I saw that as Joker's a conniving son of a bitch, and so he's going to find a way to survive no matter what. So I wasn't surprised that he was still alive at that point. But yeah, the Joss Whedon tried to negate and let go of any of the Nightmare universe by suggesting that the whole Lois Lane is the key thing was the key for Superman realizing who he was. So in the Joss Whedon, Batman had Alfred go get Lois and bring her in the pivotal point to turn Superman back. But in the Snyder Cut, it's still suggested that no, she's the key to Superman going bad in the end. If she dies, Superman, goes bad. And so, they brought that back to suggest that even though Superman's back, the Nightmare universe could still happen if we don't protect Lois.
And you also see that scene too of him grieving the loss of Lois, and Darkseid just coming to put his hand on the shoulder, and you're like, oh, a father figure, and he's also got the anti-life equation. What fresh hell is this?
Yeah.
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now, and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below, wherever you guys are listening, because, once again, you have value and you have worth. So please, stay with us.
This might be blasphemy with the current audience that I stand in front of, but there are some elements of Joss Whedon's version that I did like, and I miss that in the Snyder Cut they're not there. Particularly in the Whedon version, it is Bruce Wayne's idea to bring Lois to Superman to help him understand and remember who he is. And I think that showcases Bruce's humanity and just his understanding of how pivotal this relationship is and how this love and affection that these two characters feel for each other can literally save the world. Whereas in the Snyder Cut, she comes of her own accord and Bruce has nothing to do with it. And it's a small thing, but it just highlights a little bit more some of the things that I like about this version of Batman that I think we've maybe missed out on from some of the other iterations that we've seen.
I was really hoping you were going to talk about the whole Pet Cemetery thing.
Oh, that was excellent too. I mean, I love that. Literally, when we started this movie, so first of all, I'll try to make this quick. But when there's a scene in the very beginning of the Whedon version when he's talking to Aquaman, and Aquaman says something about being alone, basically. Or he's like, however that saying goes, and Ben Affleck goes, that's not a saying. No one says that. That's the opposite of a saying. That's not in the Snyder Cut. And so when I saw that it wasn't there, I was like, oh no, did they? I love Zack Snyder, but did he cut all of the humor from this movie? Is it not going to be funny at all? And then we got the Flash scenes, which I was happy to see that, okay, the humor's here. It's just concentrated where it's meant to be. And then as we're watching it, we're like, oh no, because my favorite moment in the movie is still when the Flash is going full speed and Superman just turns and looks at him, which is so scary. Putting myself in Barry Allen's mind, we don't know much of his backstory, but I don't believe in this version of him he has faced off against another speedster before, so he's never seen someone who can keep up with him. And just his face when he realizes that Superman sees him, is moving as fast as him, it's so scary and so hilarious at the same time. So yeah, I was really nervous that entire scene might have been a Whedon edit and it would not make it into the film. So I'm happy that is there. But the Pet Cemetery comments were definitely appreciated as well in a Whedon's version of the film.
Yeah, they cut out the Pet Cemetery specific joke, but I do love how a lot of the people that gave some props to the Whedon cut, the props ended up being to the Snyder material. I think a lot of people just assumed that a Snyder version of Justice League would just all be dark and gloomy. And you got to give the man props, man. I mean, he, Man of Steel and Batman v Superman were much different tonal films than Justice League. And even in this version, this 4-hour version, he had a lot of hope in there. He had a lot of humor in there. It was just a little more strategic, and it wasn't so on the nose, and it wasn't, falling face first into someone's boobs and stuff like that. He just had, I think he had more quality humor. And yeah, I did kind of miss the Pet Cemetery line because that was funny. I'll admit that was funny. But there were other lines that were in there that I cracked up when I saw the original version, and I was happy to see that, when given a certain tone, Zack can work in that world as well. And I thought there was plenty of humor and plenty of lightheartedness. The I'm rich, joke was in there. There's plenty of that, and that was from Snyder's version, not from Joss's. So anybody that says he only does gloomy stuff, I think is incorrect. But as far as the Lois thing, some people are complaining she didn't have much to do with this film. Well, she's not a superhero, so she doesn't. But I did like the stuff that we got of her. I did like they completely cut out. I think I went back and watched the opening credits to the Joss version. They show somebody under a umbrella stepping up to the police line and looking at the the remains of the Superman memorial. They don't show that it's her, but showing that that's something that she does, and to the point where she even gets coffee for the cop that's always there. I liked that. I liked seeing her in mourning. I mean, she's a strong character. You can be a strong person and still be in mourning and still have something break you. And to see her being broken like that, but then, somebody having to come and saying, look, you need to come back from this. You're better than this. I did like all that, even before the Martian Manhunter reveal. I did like the moments with her in this film, despite her not having a strong role. But that would be what, a Man of Steel 2 would give us.
Well, it also goes to the tone and the arcs that Snyder has given us so cohesively over this trilogy. Everything has ramifications, and when you look at the opening sequence of this movie, the death of Superman at the end of BVS, you see all of these different areas about the Amazons, the Atlanteans, Lex and the scout ship. Everything is like it's ringing out, so the end that we get at BVS, the bell has been rung, like it can't be unrung, like they've sent a message out that God is dead. And even then you see it too with the Unity coming together. You see how the three mother boxes coming together have a ramification worldwide. And also, I think that you're right, Josh. Like, I really enjoy the fact that we were able to get Lois and Martha both processing the loss of a hero. It keeps a fiance, a friend, a son. Like, it keeps in line with the vision that he set out to really humanize these characters. Like, he doesn't just want to tell stories about people coming together to fight aliens. No, these are real people with real emotions, and we talked about it in the last episode where you're going through story arcs with Victor and all of the trauma that he's unloading. You're going through the Flash and all of the things that he's experiencing. You're going through all of like the loner and like the depression, like the searching for identity and purpose that Arthur's going through. Like, everybody is going through these journeys and they're unpacking all of these traumatic things that are going to them. So when you have characters like Lois and Martha that are equally processing, it stays in tone and stays in line with the other aspects of your story.
And I just wanted to reverse course and get to Steppenwolf's journey, because I think it's interesting how he is used in this film, and it's superb because we not only see that this guy, he's trying to fight for something. He's fighting to get back to his home planet. The guy tells him, hey, like, you had a chance to sit beside at the high table with Darkseid, but your pride, you betrayed us, your mistakes have cost you that seat. So you know what you got to do? You got to go out here and conquer these planets. And you especially have to conquer the planet that Darkseid wasn't able to do. And I don't think most people realize that even if he was to conquer Earth and create another planet for Darkseid, he still has 50,000 more planets to conquer after this. It's not like that this man wants to go out here and conquer these planets. He has a tally that he needs to do in order to prove himself worthy of being in the good graces of Darkseid. So it adds not to him just being a villain and wanting to take over planets just for the sake of doing it. He's doing it because he has a family he wants to get back to. He wants to feel that he is appreciated by his leader. I mean, we've felt that before, that when we have failed somebody that we truly care about, love, like failing a parent, failing a coworker, or failing a friend, failing a spouse, we've all have felt that sense of having to redeem ourselves in the eyes of those people who cared about us and we let down. And I feel that Steppenwolf, yeah, of course he's not like somebody like a Thanos or anybody, but Steppenwolf has a journey in this film, and that, yes, he is a villain, but you can still, on some level, be empathetic to what he's going through.
I think, yeah, it added some depths to him, and I loved how even some of the reviewers were like, on some of his close-up shots, I mean, they had some really good CGIs at moments with him, especially when you saw his eyes. He even had emotion on his face. Like somebody was like, man, I'm glad you made him look better, but did you have to make him look adorable in some spots? And I laughed at that because I could see when they did that. But adding some backstory to him made the true villain Darkseid that much more, because in the short, Joss cut, you just see him and he's always talking about Darkseid, but you don't see Darkseid, and you're just like, oh, is this it? Like, I get it, he's powerful, but I don't feel like he's a part of that much of a threatening force. But when you see how powerful he is in this version, and then when you see Darkseid come up on that stone, and he even takes off some of his armor because he's bowing down and everything to the greatness that is Darkseid. I thought that gave so much more weight to the impending doom that is coming to Earth, no matter if the Justice League wins this fight or not. And so, it gave depth to his character. It made you more invested in what he was doing, but then it also gave depth to Darkseid and made the stakes higher, because you got this glimpse of, man, we thought Steppenwolf was a force to be reckoned with. What's with this dude that he's cowering in front of? I thought that was all great stuff, and was happy to see it.
Diana even says at one point that Darkseid is a name cursed and feared throughout the galaxy. She also, in that backstory, talks about the mother boxes being scientifically so advanced it looks like sorcery. But Celeste, to your point as well, my wife and I always have like a joke where, like, if we ever get mad at each other, we never say, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. And that word disappointed always carries a lot more weight that I feel like in one of the very first lines that he speaks, this aside from Desaad, like almost had me in tears. He says, he will be pleased. He will see my worth again. And Josh, to your point, like, they were able to convey so much emotion. Like, I've never felt so much emotion for a digital character. I think the closest one that I can think of that conveys that amount of empathy and just pain and torture would be Caesar from the Apes films. And Syrian Hines, just, I probably mispronounced that name, but just, my God, like, this guy was the best part of this movie for me. I can't remember a villain that I have clung to in any comic book movie for a long time. At least in a DC movie, I think Joker is probably the only other one that I really found myself sympathetic for, with Joaquin Phoenix take, but just the journey and, the connection of, trying to seek redemption and like what that, win that approval back. Like Celeste was saying, like there's something that I've gone through several times in my own life, and I understand like what it's like to, climb up the wall of disappointment and try to, earn your trust back from whoever you're trying to get through.
Yeah, I agree. I think on my last note here before I got to bounce, I just that one scene where he was first talking about, just grant me an audience, let me make a plea to this man, and Desaad was just like, yeah, no, you can talk to him after 50,000 more planets, and even me just thinking like, 50,000, that's so many. If it's he came to Earth and was like, it's got no lanterns, it's got no Kryptonians, it should be easy, and it's still taking him this long, and he's got 50,000 more to do. I felt for that, and just and seeing his face, like I was never like, oh, poor him, but also at the end, his fight with the Justice League was so much better. When Black Suit Superman comes in and says not impressed, and just air freezes the axe, and then just goes to town on this dude. I mean, he's putting him down, he's flying him up and putting him down again. He's lasering off his horns. The straight up murder of Steppenwolf in this film was just great. Not only do they ruin his chances of the unity and everything, but then Aquaman pierces him through the chest, and Superman gets one last punch in, and then Wonder Woman's like, Wonder Woman at this point thinks he's a liar, but he straight up told her that he killed her mom, so she doesn't know if that's true or not. She's not going to know unless she goes back and checks out the mascara. But for her to get that last hit in, like, no, you ain't going through this portal till I take your head, that was, oh my gosh, that was so great. And it was so much more like, hell yeah, than, your minions smell fear, and then they drag him back up the boom tube. I loved that finale so much more, and that they all got their licks in, before he was out. So, I appreciated the more stuff we got with him, and then the end of Steppenwolf as well.
Also, for me, Josh had talked about, and this has been on my head since we did the commentary, but the way in the Whedon cut about how Steppenwolf was just turning people into parademons just by touching them. I was glad that I didn't see that in this film, because they talk about how when Darkseid gets another planet, anybody who is within that planet is just essentially a slave. And then that's when the process of being turned into a parademon comes in. So I was glad to not see any, like, Steppenwolf just touching random individuals or random humans or the scientists that he had in hostage, just turning him into parademons. I was glad not to see that.
Well, Steppenwolf, too, feels like a legitimate threat in this one. Like, not only is he, like, sympathetic in that way, like, I feel like the best, like, villain to compare him to would either be Thanos or Vader. Because here you have a guy that is, capable of destroying and conquering a world, but he's basically grooming it for a larger threat to come in. And I think for me, one of I love, on Josh's note, I loved the end, like the murdering scene that we end up going through with the Justice League taking him down. There's another scene too, and this is going to be super controversial because I know Amanda Heard's not everyone's favorite person right now, but I loved the sequence where Mera, like, sucks out the water and blood from him when he goes to Atlantis to get the second mother box. Mera is one of my favorite characters in the comics, and it has been a disservice to what we've seen of her on screen, but I'm glad that she was able to bring redemption to this character. The Snyder Cut was, at least. Were there any other, like, side characters that you guys had, like, favorite moments with?
I love that Willem Dafoe makes an appearance. That was really cool. So that was good to see him in and kind of get more time with him. That was definitely a big moment for me.
I was also good to see more J.K. Simmons in this cut, and also to see more of, I'm trying to think of it. There's another character that gets more airtime in this film, but I can't think of it. Oh, yeah. Silas Jones, of course. Because in the original Justice League, we, like you said, when Cyborg's material got left on the cutting room floor, so did Silas Jones. And it felt like we get to see more of Silas and Cyborg's relationship. We get to understand why Cyborg is mad at Silas. We get to understand Silas feels regret for the way that he has handled, his relationship with his mother. And even he feels some kind of, like, sadness, too, of bringing back his son the way that he is. But the only thing that he can do is that he can give him guidance. He can tell him what these new abilities are. He can tell him that, hey, whatever you do with this power, make sure you do it in good nature. Don't let yourself be consumed by the power. So it was good to see that.
And Silas, too, his sacrifice scene in this film. I mean, taking on truly a heroic mantle of, at first, I know I assumed it's like, oh, he's trying to destroy the mother box, and he fails, and it's like, oh man, he didn't even do it. But then no, you find out he marked it with an energy signature so that they can find it. Like, he literally tees up the end of the movie and lines it up so that the Justice League can go in and just take it down and save the planet. And that's such a emotional scene. Anytime a character, especially a father figure, sacrifices themselves like that, it's never easy, but it's so influential with how the rest of the movie plays out. And I thought that was a good service to his character. And I still hope that there's some alternate reality or something where he wasn't destroyed by the lasers. He was just transported out of time and space. But we'll see. Considering the continuity of future films is going to be incredibly confusing anyways, who knows what we are going to get or not get.
Yeah, I want to talk about how the Snyder Cut is going to impact the DC slate moving forward in just a few minutes. But Celeste, to your point too, I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about being able to see more of J.K. Simmons' take on Commissioner Gordon was that he felt as weary as the Batman we met in BVS. Like, someone hands him a stack of messages and they immediately just go right in the trash. Like, I just love how, like, tired he feels and how he just kind of comes across, and just to see Simmons in that role, I think was really just so rewarding to finally get to see. We talked a lot about the traumatic backstories of these characters and kind of how they have to grow out of it, and there's one line in particular that Bruce is having this aside with Alfred, and he says, "For once, I'm not operating strictly on reason, or for once, I'm operating strictly on faith, not reason." And him having one of the toughest roads within the DCEU, and I feel like we should just kind of spend a couple minutes kind of addressing some of, the practicalities of holding on to faith or finding some trinket to hold on to of hope, like Josh was saying in the last episode. Like, once he's tasted that hope, he doesn't want to let go of it.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.
Yeah, there's a quote towards the end of the film where it says, "The world is not fixing the past, only in the future." We can't just keep dwelling, on what happens or what mistakes we have done or the bad things that have happened to us in the past. I mean, maybe some of the bad things that happened to us in the past help make us better versions of what ourselves are in the current tense. So this film, it not only shows us about being a hero, sacrificing, coming together instead of being divided. I mean, there's a quote from Steppenwolf early in the film where he says, well, this is a primitive planet. Like, these people wage wars against each other. Like, when it comes for hard times, they're not going to all come together. They're still going to be divided, fighting about petty things. So this is going to be an easy planet to take. So seeing how Batman is able to bring these heroes together, and also seeing that in order for us to make the world a better place, we have to not worry about what happened in the past. We have to put all those things aside and worry about the now in order to improve the future.
I have a DC specific question for you guys, for you who are more familiar with the comics and what's canon and everything. I feel like there is no consistency with how fast the Flash actually is. because in the CW show, in one of the earlier seasons, they mentioned that he averages about 2,000 miles per hour. And then in this film, they talk about going the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles per second. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. How fast is the Flash really?
He can go the speed of light. So,
Josh, you're muted.
He can go the speed of light. So it's the Snyder Cut's very accurate in their depiction of this character.
Yeah,
that's so fast. My God.
I was wondering the same thing too, Dan, and also I had put this question to a spoiler-free thread in the Philly Film discussion group, and Josh, you had answered my question, but the scene of where the Green Lantern is in the historical flashback, where he's fighting alongside Zeus and the Atlanteans and the Amazons against Darkseid, and the ring comes off when the guy who's carrying it dies, and then the ring, it comes towards Darkseid, and I had a wondering question because I'm not familiar with the comics, like, if Darkseid was able to get that ring, would he become the new Green Lantern? And you end up telling me that, oh no, it only goes to people who are really worthy of holding the ring, and it made me desire more for a Green Lantern film.
We are also on the verge of a Green Lantern's hbo-max series too, so we're not that far off from it. But I just want to encourage anyone listening that just keep pressing through to heal from. Healing is always worth it. You talk about what. Cyborg is a great example of that. Victor Stone literally loses his mother and 75% of his body, and yet is reborn as this digital demigod, basically, and just kind of pushing through. But I just want to encourage anyone listening right now to just find ways to heal, because your mental health will be better for it in the long run. But let's jump in and let's be nerds for a few minutes. What implications does the Snyder Cut have on the future of the DCEU? Lots of different things coming out right now in the press junkets for this. This film sets up so much. It sets up the Flash's abilities for a film. It hints at a Cyborg solo film. It set up the antagonist for the Batman, and also has given us a taste of what would have been the third and final film for the Justice League trilogy.
Yeah, I feel like this movie gives me so much, or it would have given me so much hope for the future. I think I had read something today that WB doesn't really consider the Snyder Cut to be the canonical cut. Whether or not they'll change their minds on that, or things will shift with development, it will remain to be seen. I definitely wish that we were getting the full Justice League trilogy that Zack Snyder was probably originally thinking of and trying to set up. It does seem like there's so many different plots here, and the whole nightmare scenario, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if that's a different dimension, if it's an alternate timeline, if that is the future and Bruce Wayne has tapped into it somehow through the Speed Force. There are a lot of unanswered questions there. And maybe, again, being familiar with the comics, you guys might have more context to that. But I am hoping that they start to hopefully slow down a little bit and really just take their time to kind of rebuild these universes. And I think as we're getting movies like The Suicide Squad, it's almost like we're getting a second chance at some of these stories. And I hope that they continue to do it justice. And man, my favorite Batman villain is a Mr. Freeze. If we ever get like a Zack Snyder Mr. Freeze Batman film, I'm so on board with that. So I've got hopes for the future, and I hope that even if things don't work out the way I want them to over the next 5 years, my hope is in the far future we'll be getting the films that we want.
So my renewed hope was when I saw Aquaman, Shazam, and Birds of Prey. So I already have found my second win with being along for the DCEU ride. And now seeing with this film, I have more confidence now that there is a world where Marvel and DC can both make great superhero films. I want to see more of these characters. I mean, I want to see more that after initially watching the Snyder Cut, I went onto HBO Max and watched the new Deathstroke film. Now, the new Deathstroke animated film is okay. You know, it's not great. It's not something that's going to light you on fire, but I want to know more about these characters. I'm interested. I want to see Green Lantern. You know, I want to see. Of course, we're going to get another Wonder Woman, and I want to see a Cyborg film. I want to see a Flash film, and I know it's pretty much out of any chance we're going to see a Batman solo film, which I don't mind, but hey, I would want to see that too. I want to see more Justice League. I want Snyder to get a chance to finish out his trilogy. The future looks bright, honestly, and I just want to see where it goes from here.
So, Dan, to your question, the Nightmare universe is set 5 years into the future events from Justice League. Okay. So it is actually the same timeline. And yeah, Celeste, to your point, I also, too, want to see more from these characters. I think that, you know, we've seen over the past 4 years, not just all of these, like, you know, this movement for release the Snyder Cut, but you've also seen numerous shakeups with DC execs. And some people theorize that the only reason that we actually got the Snyder Cut to begin with was the fact that it was AT&T like really pulled it when they bought Warner Brothers and, you know, started doing Warner Media. And I really hope, and I think that if they're going to allow Snyder to be true to his cut, I don't think that these characters will ever see the light of day on a big screen again outside of something like Fathom events. I think that, you know, especially when you look at how bloody and violent Zack Snyder's Justice League is, in all of its glory, it is a HBO Max exclusive, and I think that if they're going to do anything remaining in the Snyderverse, because there is a character that says that Steppenwolf is one of the most, that the anti-life equation would give Darkseid the power to overthrow and become the most formidable villain in the entire multiverse. So this film sets up the multiverse of the DCEU on the big screen outside of what CW did last year with Crisis on Infinite Earths. So you have these two things that are competing with one another, but I think one of two things are going to happen. It's going to be an HBO Max exclusive if we get any more of these series, or they're going to send them directly to the comic books.
I think that definitely makes sense, and that's the direction we're going to be seeing things going in. I totally agree with Celeste, though. The future is looking bright right now, and I'm excited to see where things go and what kind of filmmakers they'll bring in to make these films. And you know, in a year with the pandemic, where I personally haven't been to a movie theater in over a year, which is really sad to think about. I have been enjoying more of these films at home and getting on these like advanced screenings that that different streaming services have been releasing, and it's allowed me to enjoy more of the theatrical experience in my own living room. But I also have, I would say, in the words of Steve Trevor from the first Wonder Woman film, above average in terms of my media setup with my TV and surround sound. So it's not a bad way for me to experience these films, but man, I can't wait for theaters to come back, and I really hope we start to see more theatrical runs as well. Yes,
I'm dying to get back to the theaters. My life hasn't been the same without stepping into a theater. That was my happy place. My place to get away from any issues or problems, and just to enjoy watching new films with other fanatic film goers like myself. You know, is, you know, any point that they could bring this Justice League Snyder Cut to the theater, I'm there, especially in IMAX.
Yeah, especially given the fact that this film was given in a 4:3 ratio for the hopes of it seeing IMAX one day. That makes me really excited. I can't wait to see this film in the Justice is Gray version, which is going to be the noir black and white cut of this movie. It's going to be hitting physical media at the beginning of summer. So I'm really excited for this, and I think that given Warner Brothers' past history as well, that we have a good shot of seeing more within this universe. I think also it's just going to also depend on Zack Snyder wanting to kind of come back into the world of these like very complicated characters.
I really hope that this film sees a huge IMAX theatrical cut someday release, because I would absolutely go and sit in an IMAX seat for 4 hours to watch this on a massive screen. I feel at home the 4:3 aspect ratio, it didn't change anything. If anything, I liked how it focused on the close-ups especially. I feel like maybe you got more with those characters, but it was definitely meant for those huge screens, and I hope we get to see it there someday. Especially if either of you guys saw Aquaman in IMAX, more than half of that movie was in IMAX ratio. Like, I felt like I was underwater. So I know they can do it, and I know it kicks ass, and I just want to see more of that.
Agreed. Seeing it on like IMAX was a beautiful thing, and that was kind of my biggest complaint about this movie, is not being able to see it on the biggest screen possible. So just some recommendations for you. I want to kind of echo what Colette was saying about some of the amazing animated movies that are out there. If you guys are like, man, I don't know where to go next, Justice League War and Justice League Dark Apocalypse War are two movies that I would recommend checking out. They're streaming right now on HBO-Max as well. But guys, is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about for this film?
Not really for me. I'd say, honestly, my biggest takeaway, I mean, we've been talking for a two-parter now about how much we enjoyed it, and as comic fans and DC fans, how good it was. My biggest takeaway, and I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've likely already seen it. If not, like, go watch it. If you saw the theatrical cut of Justice League and you just hated it or didn't like it, I don't think this movie fundamentally changes it in a way that's going to make you go, oh, whoa, this movie is incredible. But if you liked Justice League, or if you enjoyed it but thought it had some flaws, I feel like this movie fixes and addresses a lot of that and just makes it better. I know for me, when I revisit this movie, I don't think I'll go back to the theatrical edition. Similar to Lord of the Rings, when I watch those movies, I watch the extended cuts now. This is a film that I will pretty much always go to the Snyder cut to watch.
For me, kind of supported what Dan said. I mean, this is an amazing film. It's a reclamation project that actually supports and actually delivers on the hype that was presented to it before. And for anybody who was a fan of the original, then I know you're going to love this cut. And if you weren't a fan of the original, then, hey, maybe there's nothing that we can say, or nothing of the good critical things that are being said, or any of the new changes might not change your mind. But I would say give it a shot. You never know. For me, I had no plans of watching this in the beginning, but eventually I fell victim to the hype, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And I'm all the more greater for it. And it helped me find a renowned like want into seeing more of Snyder in the DC universe, and I hope that could be the same for everybody else as well.
You're welcome for recommending that we do a Road to Snyder Cut series, because I remember when the three of us did our Man of Steel episode, you were like, man, like, I have such a renewed appreciation for this movie. And Dan, it's also nice to know that you're years later that your opinion of Suicide Squad has not changed.
No, it's I was saying to Josh, Suicide Squad released not that long after I did my original podcast, and we did an episode about it, and it was really funny listening to my 2016 thoughts on it, which are pretty similar to my 2021 thoughts, hey, I'll defend that movie, and I had a good time with it, despite all the grief it gets, so definitely looking forward to the future.
Yeah, we're so excited about the Suicide Squad from James Gunn, but I think you guys both said it right. Like, this film is just, it stands out so much within the comic book movie medium genre, and, just please go watch this movie. This movie is incredible. It, like Colette says, like, it delivers on every cylinder. the fight sequences are incredible. The music to this is just phenomenal. All of the characters really get their due say, and it's beautiful from start to finish. And so we hope that you guys have enjoyed our review of the Snyder Cut, or Zack Snyder's Justice League, as HBO Max calls it. But Dan and I are going to be back this upcoming Tuesday talking about the 1995 movie Desperado, which I'm pretty excited about. But Dan, where can people find you online one more time?
Absolutely. You can catch me over at Twitter at drock6499. Still sharing a lot of articles and work that I do over at Tech Raptor, as well as my PS5 game share stuff. So follow me over there for more video game stuff, as well as film thoughts as well.
And Colus, where can people find our friends Feeling Film?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Also find us on Letterboxd, the best social media app out there. And also check on the work that I have done for Victims and Villains, and also check out Feeling Film Black Label.
All right, well, if you guys go to victimsandvillains.net, you guys can get access to all of past episodes, all of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and Letterboxd. And most importantly, you guys can find our mental health resource library as well, all of which you guys can find in the descriptions wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Go back and check out all 6 episodes of our Road to Snyder Cut series that we have now completed. And you guys can also find me on Letterboxd as well. It's at Captain Nostalgia. But like we said, we're going to be tuning up our mariachi guitars, and we're going to be talking about Desperado on the next episode. So have a good one, guys.